And you weren't groomed for this? Your parents
Nothing.
weren't pushing you into
Nothing.
showbiz? You didn't
No.
take dance classes and music classes your whole life?
Lessons, when, as I said, when I was in high school, I started actual singing lessons in Pittsburgh when I was about 12, because everybody that I sang for said, "You've got to, my mother, you've got to have her lessons. She has an incredible instrument." So I did that, and as I said, there was a place called the Pittsburgh Playhouse, where every summer when I was in high school, I would go and do shows, took dance, took acting, just at the Pittsburgh Playhouse, which they're rebuilding in downtown Pittsburgh now, and I'm on the board, and so I'm helping them do that. So that's all I did. Now, South Pacific was 3 months. I went into another Rodgers and Hammerstein show called Me and Juliet, and they gave me the role of Juliet, which was a featured part, and I had one song, one solo. Went to Chicago with the show, and while I was there, they sent me to California to screen test for the role of Laurie in the motion picture of Oklahoma. And that's how it all began. So you see the flow.
Yes.
Amazing.
And one thing after another
without trying.
So how did you
Amazing.
meet Jack?
Well, I did the movie, okay, which took about 9 months in Nogales, Arizona. Came back to New York and had an apartment there with another actress friend of mine from Pittsburgh. And Rodgers and Hammerstein put me under personal contract. I was the only person ever put under contract to them. I was never under contract to a movie studio. And so I did Oklahoma under that contract. And they said, "Shirley, we're sending a production of Oklahoma, stage production, to Europe." It was kind of a salute to France program, and they were going to be in Paris and Rome and Germany. And they said, "We'd like you to play Laurie in the show." And the original director that had directed it on Broadway in 1942 was directing this. And I said, "Oh, wow." I'd never been to Europe. I said, "How great."
Sure.
So the first day of rehearsals, we rehearsed in New York. And my friend that I was living with was a singer-actress, and she was in the show too, which was fun, nice. And she called me. She had to go to the dance rehearsal. She was more a dancer. She said, "Shirley, have you met your leading man yet?" I said, "No, why?" She said, "Oh, he's drop-dead gorgeous." She said, "Wait till you meet him." I said, "I'm not thrilled with handsome men, because most of the time they know they're handsome. They're not very interesting."
Right. The cliche goes both ways.
Exactly,
yes.
right. Anyway, I got to the theater, and of course he was sitting in one end of the stage and I was sitting on the other, and we were reading the show, for the director. And he got up and he walked all the way over to my chair and he said, "Hello." He said, "My name is Jack Cassidy." He said, "I know who you are." And he said, "I just want to tell you that it's a pleasure to work with you." And I saw, yes, he was very handsome, but I saw something else. I saw kind of a sense of comedy, a sense of, he was bright, interesting, not just a handsome guy. And that's what I saw right away. So the looks didn't do it for me. Then, anyway, we rehearsed there. We went to Paris. And my first night in Paris, he called me and he said, and he was married, by the way. And he said, "Can I take you out on a date?" I said, "You're a married man." He said, No. He said, "I'm your leading man." He said, I'll take you to the Eiffel Tower." He said, "And we'll have some champagne," he said, "and some escargot." And I said, "Oh, I've never had either one." So he said, anyway, we did that, went there, and it was wonderful, wonderful. He told jokes. He was funny. I loved the humor, He was funny. He was bright. He was very theatrical. I mean, he'd done so many shows. He was in a show called Wish You Were Here. He was the star on Broadway. And a lot of other stuff, a lot of summer stock and stuff like that. And he was 10 years older than me. And anyway, we walked home we were staying on the left bank in Paris. Walked home, a little hotel called the Splendide, as I remember, and took me to my room, and I'm standing outside the door, and he leaned over and he kissed me on the cheek, and he said, "I'm going to marry you." I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "You're married." He said, "I know, but I'm going to marry you." And that was the first date. From then on, we went to Rome, went to I didn't get to Germany. I got to Rome, did Paris, did Rome, Then R&H called and said they were going to do the movie of Carousel, and they wanted me to star in the movie of Carousel. So I had to fly home, and my understudy took over with Jack there.